Al McFarland. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarland. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along. Today we're streaming live across several platforms, Black Press USA for YouTube and Facebook, Insight News' YouTube channel and Facebook. We're also streaming to LinkedIn and I believe to Twitter. And no matter how you're connecting, we invite you to participate in the conversation in the program. Drop a comment in the comment section. We'll try to shout you out. Do us a favor. Let other people know in your network that this conversation is going on right now. We're talking about politics in Minneapolis. We're pleased to have the candidates, several of the candidates for mayor of Minneapolis, to be with us for this program. You're going to hear from Representative Omar Fateh, Jazz Hampton, and Dr. Dwayne Davis, all candidates for the office of mayor of the city of Minneapolis. You'll also hear from one of the city council candidates, Andrea Young. And we also have a person coming on later today who is from a PAC group supporting candidates in the election. But let's start with Andrea Young. Andrea, good afternoon. Welcome again. We've had you on before. Good to see you again. Give us an update. How does the campaign look from your point of view right now? And what do you want us to know?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the campaign is looking pretty good for me. Just the more I get out, of course, I'm a real grassroots campaign, a lot of door knocking and a lot of just making sure that I'm showing up in different spaces and shaking a lot of hands to meet the people where they are. But when I am meeting people, they are intrigued by the things that I've done as well as my platform and what I stand for. So that's good. And that also feels good.
So what are they intrigued by? What do you tell them? What are they telling
Yeah.
you?
Well, I mean, I always tell them I'm the best candidate for the job, first off. But I mean, I think that they're intrigued with the fact of like all the advocacy work that I've put in over the last few years. So advocating for that $10 million in anti-displacement funding, as well as advocating for the trash burner to be removed from our community. And then I would also say the work that I've done with the Bring Back Six Coalition, and a lot of people are becoming more aware of that because our streets is just naturally doing their own canvassing in the community, Ward 5 specifically, to educate them and get them involved in the work that we've done. So also having that on my material and sharing how I've had involvement with that is also, I think, making a difference.
This is your first time running for office, right?
Yes.
So what have you discovered? Tell me about how you came to the decision to put your hat in the ring.
Yeah.
What doubts did you have? What lack of doubt? What fearlessness, emerged in you?
Yeah.
Walk me through that process of feelings and the decision making.
What made me decide to throw my hat in the ring would be just working as a community organizer for the Heritage Park Neighborhood Association and always reaching out to our current council member and never really getting him, but always getting like his policy aides. I'll say they're great people and have been really resourceful and helpful throughout whatever I was trying to navigate as an organizer. But just feeling like we kind of had that lack of communication with our council member. And then just with the issues that are happening in Heritage Park and trying to elevate, the maintenance issues and the livability conditions that the residents are in to not only our city council member, but we've like reached out to the mayor and we also reached out to like the attorney general's office and feeling like things aren't being done properly with that neighborhood, because it's not even just one building, but yeah, the neighborhood that I work for. That's kind of what intrigued me to want to be involved. And then I've spent the last couple of years just being an organizer in the ward and wanting to elevate my efforts on a higher platform. For me, I will say, I don't know. When I did it, I like when I registered on MapLight and I started creating the website and everything, because I did a lot of the things for myself when it comes to my campaign. But doing all of these things, I would get these butterflies in my stomach. Like, you're really doing this. I can't believe you're really doing this. But it feels good nonetheless.
Mhm.
It's been a learning curve. I would say my most emotional moment was during some of the endorsement processes, because when I wasn't selected, I had a couple of the PACs like reach out to me and tell me, if I run again, they'll endorse me, or, they really loved what I had to say, but they couldn't endorse me this time. So that was an emotional process for me. But now I think that I've overcome that. I am a God-fearing woman, so I do believe that no matter what happens, God is looking out for me and it's going to be for the betterment of me no matter what. But I am still out here every day pushing and trying to get my name out there. And like I said, I haven't been elevated as much just because of it being a grassroots campaign, and it does take for me to actually like hit these doors and meet these people. But when I do, I am flipping signs, I am flipping votes, I am flipping people when they come to the forum. I have people telling me they're going to vote for me. So that feels good. The more that I elevate myself, and there's no better feeling than that, to know that you believed in yourself and you took a chance on yourself. So
What's your background again? Who are your parents? Where are you from? And what's your story?
yeah. So my father is actually from Jamaica. He came here as a teenager to Minnesota. And then my mother, she's actually from Flint, Michigan, but they came here when she was a teenager too. My mom's name is Sandy Young. She works for a hospital here in Minnesota. She does a lot of advocacy work. She's a union steward for the SEIU. So she does a lot of advocacy work when it comes to like discrimination and stuff like that at the hospital that she works for. So I would say maybe I got a little bit of my fight from her. I feel like when it comes to being a little more outgoing, that probably came more from my dad, just the kind of like man that he is.
What's your dad's name?
My dad's name is Andrew Wayne Clark. That's my father's name.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say just from him, that would probably be a little bit more of how my personality, I guess, came a little bit more from him. But yeah, I hope I answered that.
That's good. I'm a Jamaican like that. Okay. So shout out to the Jamaican roots.
Yeah, shout out to the Jamaican roots.
Yeah.
Listen, in Jamaica, and pray for them, what they're going through currently.
Yeah, they're going through it right now with the storm. But listen, Andrea, thank you so much. Continued success. Keep working. I'm glad to see you doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best in your campaign. And then no matter what happens, I think you're in this for the long haul.
Thank you.
And the long haul is going to deliver good for our ward, our community, and for our people. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland, and our focus today is on politics. And I'm pleased to have 3 of the candidates for the office of Mayor of Minneapolis join me now. This follows our discussion yesterday with another candidate, the incumbent mayor, Jacob Fry, was with me yesterday. So we're reaching out to other candidates to get their stories as well. So meet Dwayne Davis and Jazz Hampton and Omar Fateh. Omar, make sure that I'm saying your name the right way. Tell me the right way to pronounce your last name.
You said it correct.
Okay, great. Thank you all for being here. Let me start by having you take the time you need to introduce yourself to this audience and to people that are listening. Share this conversation on your networks, let people know that we're having the conversation. If you have questions for these candidates or for me, send a note in the chat box, monitoring that, and get involved. So let me start. I'll go alphabetical with you, Dr. Dwayne. Good afternoon and welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Al. It's good to be with you again. I really appreciate this opportunity. For those who don't know me, I am the 15th and youngest child of a Pentecostal minister and a kindergarten teacher who started their life off in the most violent time of Jim Crow, Mississippi, and worked so hard to create a life for me. I am the product of just years of struggle. And my parents sent all 15 of their kids to college. I went off to Howard University, and after college, I started working on Capitol Hill. I spent 20 years working for 3 members of Congress. Did stints at progressive think tanks. The most recent member I served was Democratic leader Steny Hoyer. And I did a range of human needs portfolio, everything from Social Security, education, healthcare, housing, justice issues. law enforcement issues. I worked on all of those things. And then after years of running away from running away from my father, I like to say, I eventually went to seminary and took on a career in ministry, which is what brought me here to Minneapolis. I came here to pastor a church in South Minneapolis, All God's Children Metropolitan Community Church on 31st and Park. And then most recently, I served at Plymouth Congregational Church in downtown. And the one thing that I never thought that I would run for office. I spent a lot of time in politics, and I never came to the point where I felt that I was going to run. However, when I moved here, I moved to North Minneapolis, and right away I saw so many racial and economic disparities, things that I had been working on in Washington. And I just felt that I had to get my hands in and try to figure out what's going on. After George Floyd was murdered, something, I had always feared was going to happen, especially since the first thing that I encountered here was the killing of Jamar Clark about 3 blocks from where I live. Mm-hmm. So I just got into this work, and in 2022, Jacob Fry tapped me to co-chair the Community Safety Work Group to provide recommendations for police reform and public safety. And I got a peek behind the curtain. And I think what really drove me to want to run for mayor is that I think that we haven't had the kind of leadership that we need, especially given where we're about to go now. Certainly our challenges of a decrease in commercial tax base, homelessness crisis, and affordable housing crisis, being under a court enforceable settlement agreement for police reform. And then what's coming out of Washington? We really need new leadership that is able to bring a host of people together that can work cross-jurisdictionally to address all of those issues. And I think I'm uniquely situated at this particular moment to do that.
Awesome. Great beginning. Omar Fatah, you've got the microphone.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. And again, Omar Fatah, I've been the state senator for Southside Minneapolis the last 5 years. A little bit about myself is that I was born in Washington, D.C. I'm the 5th out of 6 children. Both my parents immigrated from Somalia before I was born. My father came in 1963 on a college scholarship, and he was placed in Montana State University in Bozeman, Montana. And at the time, there was not a single African American in the university and not a single Black family in Bozeman, Montana. So those are the kind of stories that I carry with me. In fact, I think the year in 1963 that he came to America was the same year in which George Wallace had that famous speech, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. And now we can see that how some of that rhetoric is coming back with Trump back in office and some of his allies like Stephen Miller and so on. And so went to school, got my bachelor's and master's in public administration from George Mason University. Moved out here about a decade ago and with a job offer with the city of Minneapolis, local elections office. Did a lot of organizing with them in a nonpartisan way, doing voter outreach and education, talking to folks. Was able to work for 2 state agencies afterwards with both the Revenue Department and the Department of and MnDOT, and doing some project coordination. And so had that agency experience and doing a lot of local work around young people, helping young folks who are interested in helping other young people too, around like addiction services, job opportunities. Around that time, also the Opportunity Center was opening up in Southside Minneapolis, helping folks get plugged in and things like that. And so those are the kind of things that I was connected with. I got chaired, I was selected to vice chair the Hennepin County 2040 Policy Advisory Committee after being appointed by Commissioner Marion Green at that time also. So that really opened my eyes about some of the vision that's happening, not just here in Minneapolis, but countywide, and what their vision was set forth. And so one of the things that always drove me in my politics is the need to have more voices for working families. The wealthy, the well-connected, the corporations, they'll be okay. They're always going to have their power, their influence, and their profits. but the everyday person, the worker, the small business owner, our teachers, our youth, our seniors, what are we doing to help them? How are we being good stewards of our tax dollars to make sure that the folks that need help the most get their help? And I remember thinking to myself, and I announced for office in late 2019 for the state senate in 2020, and I wanted to run because I felt like there weren't enough voices at the Capitol for working families. And I remember thinking to myself and talking to folks around some of my suspicions and having some distrust myself in government, what's happening, right? And some of my suspicions around having the communities with the most unmet need being negotiated out behind closed doors. And so after I won, what I saw firsthand is that some of my worst suspicions were actually confirmed, that it was happening. And also was happening because there weren't enough voices pushing back, especially there weren't enough voices within like the Posse Caucus, the People of Color and Indigenous Caucus that we had. I think when I got elected, there were a few strong voices, Senator Champion, Senator Kunish, Senator Herr, that were part of the Posse Caucus. But now we're much, much stronger. Once we took the majority in 2023, we had a whole host of folks come in that joined the caucus. Leaders like Senator Claire Mover-Bain and Aaron McQuaid and Zaina Mohammed and Elise Mann and on and on and on. And so our caucus within the Senate really grew. And as they grew, our voices became stronger, and we've pushed the envelope on some of the issues that affected communities that look like us. And when we united as a strong caucus, I strongly believe that the Minnesota miracle that we saw last biennium, passing so much progressive policy and not leaving our communities to get negotiated out or behind, was due to the fact that we operated as a unit and we were able to work together to fight for change. I was honored to lead on some transformational pieces of legislation in our state's history, like passing tuition-free college for working class families called the North Star Promise. And that was something that was led by students and students of color. They led that initiative. We had the first ever student day as one of the first 3 hearings in 2023, and they were talking about college affordability and campus hunger and mental health support. And because of them, we were able to pass tuition-free college for working families. And for the first time in a decade and a half, we've seen an increase in enrollment after years and years of enrollment decreases that we've been experiencing at the university level. I was honored to lead on the fight for the Uber and Lyft battle for stronger rideshare protections and increased wages for our drivers, which was the strongest protections in the nation leading, and I was proud about that. And on a whole host of human services legislation, including the legalization of fentanyl testing strips, because our goal is to not criminalize addiction, is to keep people alive. And a year after that passage, actually, Star Tribune had a report that showed Hennepin County passed out 1 million testing strips, saving countless lives. And so that's the kind of vision that I had for our city and for our state. How do we make our city more affordable, more accountable, and centering the needs and the voices of people that have historically been left out?
Omar, thank you. Let me apologize. I introduced you first as representative and not senator. So let me stand corrected, Senator Omar.
No worries. Thank you. I took that as an upgrade. Don't worry. So thank you.
Jazz Hampton, good afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here with everybody. My name is Jazz Hampton. I was born and raised here in the Twin Cities. I'm a lawyer, a small business owner here in the city of Minneapolis, a professor, a husband, and a father of 3 Minneapolis public school kids. I grew up across the railroad tracks in Richfield, Minnesota, to a dad that worked in the post office after he moved up from Gary, Indiana, and my mom had lived here for her entire life. And they worked really hard. My mom working in the restaurant industry, owning a restaurant that she inherited from her dad. And I grew up in that kitchen, cracking eggs and peeling potatoes. That was my before and after school program.
Which restaurant?
It was called King Oscar's.
Okay.
I always say my mom's white and my dad is black, so I had to grow up with lutefisk and chitlins. So I had the worst of both worlds. So they had lutefisk at that restaurant. So I grew up watching them struggle, and then my parents didn't stop there. I'm the youngest of 4 in our family, but they started taking in young black men, kids at the time from the north side that needed a place to stay. It started with just Cedric, who was going to stay for 3 days, but he stayed for 3 years. And then after that, 9 more young black men that didn't have a place to stay or to live when they were in high school. And so they came in and stayed with us, showed me how to show up and to work hard for the community when you see a need, even if you don't have that much. So I took that into the rest of my life. When I was in law school, I was a public defender, first in Anoka County and then in Ramsey County. And then when I graduated, I tried to pay off these student loans. I failed because they're still floating around me. But I went and did corporate law for several years. And then after the tragic murder of George Floyd, my 2 friends, Dre and Mike from college, called me. I played football with them in college, and they said we should build a solution around it. And they correctly identified that my undergrad degree is in computer science and my law degree and my time as a courtroom lawyer could help us build an app that could connect drivers to an attorney on a video call instantly when they've been pulled over. So we all quit our corporate jobs to start that business, which I still am the CEO and general counsel of today, 5 years later. And it serves over 200,000 people. It's an employee benefit at Fortune 10 companies, all the way down to places like Habitat for Humanity, Children's Hospital, or Fairview Hospital System. We are reaching folks where they are, but also finding folks where we're reaching folks at work, but also finding them where they are as well. Because if you're low income, we also provide the service to you at no cost. We have over 20,000 people on the platform that never pay a penny for it, but receive the exact same services. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it doesn't stop there, trying to show up when I can. I joined the board at Catholic Charities 5 years ago to understand how we can actually address our unhoused neighbors that are trying to find stability in their lives. I am on the Minneapolis Foundation board, where we try to spend our philanthropic dollars in the best way possible within the city of Minneapolis, especially around climate change and education equity, which we all know is lacking in the city of Minneapolis. And the last part, that's kind of a full circle moment. I joined the board of the Great North Innocence Project, where I represent, the organization represents wrongfully incarcerated individuals, but I also had the opportunity to be the pro bono attorney for one of our clients. His name was Marvin Haynes. At the time that he was arrested, he was a 16-year-old black kid in North Minneapolis. He was arrested and brought to jail, and he was never released. He had a trial. He was sentenced, wrongfully convicted. For 19 years he sat in prison, and I went down and I met him in Stillwater, and we took up the case, and I successfully represented Marvin and fought for his freedom. And the full circle moment that I don't get to talk about enough is, as I was walking into court on the second day of trial, someone tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around, and it was one of those 10 young men that had grown up at my house all those years earlier. And he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I represent Marvin." He said, "Marvin's my cousin. I was living, with and around his family in North Minneapolis at the time that this happened." So the full circle moment of my parents taking in Vernon when I was a kid, and then later I'm representing one of his family members and successfully freeing him. And we did. After 19 years in prison, I got to call Marvin on his birthday with the rest of the legal team and let him know that he was coming home. And now we get to spend every Thanksgiving together. So I'm very proud of all of those things. But I always say those are just examples of me seeing a need and stepping up. And that's what I felt in the city of Minneapolis for the last several years. I felt like it feels like we're in this constant feeling of gridlock and lack of traction within the city, that when I open up the newspaper or the Star Tribune online, I'm seeing about tension and fighting rather than progress around things like public safety, like affordable housing, ensuring that our kids have a great opportunity in the education system that they're serving up to them. And those are the things I'm looking to address, and frankly, do it with a city council that may not agree with everything that I say, and some of them may not agree with everything each other say, but it's our job to move the ball forward, especially in a city that is all Democratic led. This is a city that should be on the cutting edge of providing services and the best possible version of local government. And I'm excited to be the next mayor, so I can be that executive leader that we need in a strong mayor system to move us forward.
Let me ask each of you to take a couple of minutes talking about what works. What's really good about our city? And it's not like the city is going to hell in a handbasket. I think most people who are here want to be here, and they think that there's just an opportunity here. Some of us more than others, and some feel marginalized. But in general, the sense is that we've got a good community. So let me ask you as a candidate, and what's fueling you in terms of what's good about our community? But also, I do want you to indicate, by contrast, where the rough spots are. what do we need to address that we haven't either had the will, the vision, or the integrity as a community to address over generations or presently. Dwayne, start with you.
Yeah, that's a
we're flexible though.
yeah. That's a wonderful question, and it's one of the things that actually is what inspired me to run. So here's one thing that's good about the city. I think the city has the foundational sense of a big tent, of wanting to make sure that everyone is taken care of. Our social safety net is not a stingy thing. Our looking out for other people is not a sort of an us versus them, or has in terms of its operation. And I think some of that goes back to the great Hubert Humphrey. When I heard that this was the most progressive city before I moved here. And then when I got here, I saw that, yes, all of the progressive sort of check marks that you want about how we take care of each other, social safety net, interest in things, it's all there. So the question is, what we have to ask ourselves over and over again, how are we not living up to what we say on paper? Because on paper, it's all there. and in other jurisdictions, you have to work to get there. You have to work to provide, anti-discrimination for LGBTQ people. You have to work to point out that you're really trying to address disparities in housing and in wealth and all of that. We have all of these plans and things are there. So to me, what I've been saying over and over again, every time I see a new plan or I go and look at the history of the plans that we have, I just keep screaming, work the plan. You've been talking about these things, you've been dealing with these things, you know what the questions are, you know what the issues are. So why don't we go ahead and really work the plan here? So that's the thing that if I were in Baltimore or Washington, D.C., those cities would have to start from scratch on some of the things that we've already been doing, whether it be, grants.
So why has Minneapolis not been able to work the plan?
I don't know if you've seen that documentary Paradox, the Uhura Week. Yeah. Anyway, so here's the thing. We also are human. And we also, we have to deal with things like white supremacy. We have to deal with things like racism. We have to deal with all of the isms that are always the obstacle to moving forward. And here's what has been lacking, Al. Leadership. I know that we throw that word around, but here's what I mean by leadership. I'm talking about the kind of leadership that expends political capital, that when you get elected, you're going to not only to work that plan, you're going to have to put your skin in the game. You might lose, you might get some battle, but you have to do that to move that ball forward. And unfortunately, I've seen it too much. I've been here for going on 13 years, and I've seen that failure to stand up way too often. But I've also seen when it does come through. When the trifecta came into being in the legislature, I saw that energy, and finally I said to myself, okay, they're doing it. I'm seeing it with Attorney General Keith Ellison, where I think that maybe some others may have been a little bit demure in thinking about how they're going to attack and resist. He has been relentless, and I've been saying from the beginning, we need more of that kind of fight, but we need it on behalf of the city. And on behalf of the neighborhood that I live in. When I moved here, Al, my neighbors said to me, you are so naive. They have been promising us stuff all the time, and it never comes through. And they looked at me, my neighbors, elderly couple, a black couple who've lived here all their lives. And they're like, Dwayne, you are so naive. But
let me have you jump in, take off from that point. So, same question. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? Unmute Omar.
Right.
I still haven't learned. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So what I appreciate and what I've seen as senator is that our city has the people, the potential, the power, the creativity. What they're missing is just that connective piece. And I've seen firsthand as senator that our families, our working families have been showing up to the city hall, showing up to the Capitol, showing up to neighborhood meetings, because they care. They've been fighting for a city that they deeply care about, despite some of the struggles and challenges they're facing, working 2 or 3 jobs or having multiple kids, struggling to make ends meet. And there's a lot of challenges folks are facing right now with the struggling to pay rents, the cost of childcare, the cost of healthcare and health insurance. Trump's policies just is making the cost of living skyrocket in general. And so they're facing a lot of headwinds, right? And so what can we do as a city to better communicate? Well, number one, there's not enough resources to begin with, but number two, the little resources we have, how can we better communicate? And what I mean by that is, at the Capitol, one of my passion areas was helping our youth, our young people. And so I worked to help with the park board to help expand a program called the Teen Teamworks program. And so in expanding that program, I put in a few extra $1 million. And so to help our youth between the ages of 16 to 24 get jobs in the summertime in our parks and recreation centers. And I remember a couple of weeks before the application deadline was closing, I was inquiring about if it's been filling up. Like we invested a lot in this. Are kids actually pursuing this? And the answer was no. There was very few applications. And so I asked the city, and I talked to the park board also, saying like what outreach is actually being done for families to know that this is an option. And the response I got was that it's on the website, and then at each park and rec center that there's applications at the front desk. And so that's not how you engage with families. That's not how you let people know what's going on. And so I went to work to get some organizations together, get some neighbors together. And we went door knocking. We door knocked the north side, the south side, filling up the applications within the last couple of weeks. And we did. And so it was a successful program. And I remember talking to a couple of kids that went through it, and they enjoyed it, getting a livable wage, $16 to $18 or so an hour. And so I talked to these teenagers and said to them, hey, how was the program? How do you enjoy it? What did you learn? What did you spend the money on? And right? And I was expecting a response around, I bought an iPhone or an iPad or a PS5. But the response I got was, I helped my family pay rent this last couple months, and I helped with the groceries, right? And so these kids that are being portrayed like in a negative light in the media, they're breaking into car windows, they're shooting fireworks at each other, doing all this stuff. It's not a failure on them, it's a failure on us to invest in them. Because when we invest in them, we give them they get that sense of responsibility for themselves, for their families, for community, right? And so that really opened my eyes around a lot of the disconnect between the city and the community on what's available. Same thing with small businesses. I can't tell you how many times small businesses reached out to my office about what grants are potentially there, what can they do, not knowing where to start, who to even talk to begin with, right? And a lot of times it seems like that there are decisions being made and then explained away after the fact, rather than bringing people into the decision-making process of folks whose actions will directly impact, whether it's positive or negative. And so that's the kind of stuff that I want to carry with me. How do we better partner with folks and educate them with folks and bring them along for the ride? So because a lot of times I learned as legislators, you're not going to know everything. You need to speak to people to get better educated on the issues that are directly impacting them. Because you might go in with one mindset of how to help, but sometimes in your actions wanting to help, it can actually do more harm when you're not fully well-versed in the needs of the people. And so that's one thing I want to carry with me to City Hall.
Jazz, your thoughts? Same question.
You know, I've spent a lot of time knocking on folks' doors, talking to them, phone calling and having conversations with residents that, you know, some of which I've known for a long time, some of which were brand new to me. And one of the most surprising things that I've seen that I am proud of, to the beginning of the question, in this city, is that people don't always say right away, my taxes are going up too much. What they actually say is, if my taxes are going up this much, I want to see these services go up at the same level, right? In Minneapolis, I'm so proud of our consistent ability to show up for our neighbors. All we're asking in return is, when we spend these dollars, let's make sure that the results are to the level that we're paying, right? Whether we're talking about paying money to have more housing for our neighbors, whether we're talking about police officers that we're trying to recruit, or the other parts of public safety that we're building out, we actually just want to see success. And to that point, the other things that we have opportunities on, we have an opportunity to ensure that we're delivering to that goal a lot better. When we talk about public safety, I don't hear people saying to me often, most of the time when people are talking about public safety, they say, hey, I want police officers there. If I call 911 and need someone, I want them to show up and come. But if they do something wrong, I want them to be held accountable. And that's what we're asking for and what we need to deliver on a higher level on both ends of that conversation. When I talk about public safety, I always say that we want to feel safe when we call 911 and when we're being pulled over, right? And the trust in that conversation is what we have unfortunately have seen erosion in the last 5 or so years. And so this is the opportunity for us to build that trust back while building back a public safety team, one that is robust and one that we're proud of. I've sat in the 911 call center for 2 hours listening to calls come in and talk to those responders, some of them that are doing incredible work, but are wildly overworked and underpaid. Some of them that work 12-hour shifts, 3 out of 4 of their shifts because they're mandatory held when they come into work because they don't have enough people to answer 911 calls. I've talked to the BCR team that wants more, that's the people who answer mental health calls to 911, that they want more resources within their group because it's working so well, they need more folks. These are the things that we can build out to then take the weight off of officers' shoulders. Because when I talk to police officers, and I've heard both of the other 2 folks on this phone call say that as well, when I talk to police officers, they say we're asked to do too much and we don't want to do all of those things. And we have the opportunity to take some of that off of their plate to improve both the retention and the recruitment of officers within the city of Minneapolis. But we have to build from that foundation of trust and taking some things off of their plates which they're already asking us to do. That public safety piece is just one of many. I could go down the line to affordable housing and to education as well, but I'm proud to say that our residents want us to do better with the dollars we're using, and we should be doing that as well.
Well, take a minute. Go ahead and talk about public housing or housing and education. Take a couple more minutes. I'll ask Wayne and Omar to come back on the same thing.
Yeah. So the important thing around affordable housing is at the end of the day, we do not have enough units. When that encampment had the tragedy happen and folks shooting, when they brought a bus in to take them away from that location, they were struggling to look anywhere to have beds for people to go to stay in that night. We are woefully short on beds for those that are currently unhoused, but we're also woefully short for someone who's making $23,000 or $30,000 a year that is trying to rent an apartment close to where the coffee shop that they work at. These are both affordable housing situations that have to be met with a plan to make more units available within the city of Minneapolis. We're averaging somewhere around 290 deeply affordable new units within the city of Minneapolis year over year. We need way more than that right now. And there are simple things that we could do, from zoning law updates to allow houses that could otherwise be classified as a duplex to be made available and open up 700 units tomorrow if we just change some archaic zoning laws that don't need to be in place in the way that they are right now. There are specific steps that we should be taking to expand the amount of affordable housing that's available. And that's just step one. This is an entire ecosystem of work we have to do. But that is just the starting point within the city of Minneapolis. There's other things we can do, like tenant opportunity to purchase. There's things that we can do around going to the state and showing them that they can trust us. I've talked to representatives that say it's hard to give money to the city of Minneapolis because they think that you aren't going to spend it appropriately because you're going to fight over it. If we can go as a united front, 13 city council members and 1 mayor going to the state and saying, this is what we plan to do with the dollars, and we're going to have a really robust plan, we are more likely to receive those dollars. We're more likely to build out the Affordable Housing Trust, which is the pool of dollars we need right now to expand some of the work we're doing, and expand it with for-profit and nonprofit organizations at that. Those are the steps that we have to take, in my opinion, to ensure that affordable housing is realistic for the residents within the city of Minneapolis.
Omar, you talked about your emphasis on helping young people in education. Unmute again, but also talk about housing. What is the challenge of housing and wealth creation in the city of Minneapolis, particularly for the marginalized, underserved communities?
Absolutely, and I appreciate that question. And so there's a few things I want to touch on. Number one, renters.
And by the way, all of you guys, feel free to move the conversation so that
Oh,
you make sure you say what you need to say in this conversation, okay?
awesome. No, thank you so much for that. And so we need to do a few things. Number one, we know that the number one cause of folks experiencing homelessness are evictions. So we got to have a just cause eviction process and ordinance so that we can keep people in their homes. We know that we need to build more affordable housing. What I mean by that is that people should not be spending more than a third of their income on their rent. People have, we believe housing is a human right. And so I carried legislation around Minneapolis 2040, clearing the lawsuit that was causing a backlog of projects to come to a standstill. We need to see more deeply affordable housing. We need to see more housing being built. I would like to see downtown converting some of the units that are not being used so that we can have more people living downtown and broaden the tax base. But also, we got to make sure that we're protecting our renters that are living in these units. And what I mean by that is that there's a whole lot of units that are just subpar conditions, both public housing, market rate housing, and also affordable. In our public housing, there's a backlog of hundreds of millions of dollars. I think close to $300 million now in terms of rehabilitation dollars that are needed just to get it from the red area, danger area, back to fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked to bring in $5 million for the first time ever. That never happened before, to take a chip away at the backlog. We had a larger bill than that, but because of the political realities we were living in, that was the first step I wanted, to at least break that ceiling so that we can keep coming back for more and more. And so that was something we can do, and we did, for folks living in public housing, because we know it's not just lower income people living in there. A lot of times it's our more elderly senior folks living in there and living in conditions in which there's no heat in the winter or AC in the summer. That's not something we want for them. We want them to have quality conditions. I remember we were visiting, and I use a story all the time. In Loring Park, there were 3 apartment complexes. One of them we went inside, and 2 of them we went inside and visited, in which folks formed a tenant union, and they wanted to share their story. When you got in, the front door was broken in. The mailboxes were all broken, so that folks had to go downtown or go to the post office to get their mail. There was black mold in units and in the laundry room. Folks that were unhoused were going inside and sleeping in the laundry room, on and on and on. No heat, no AC. And so when they formed the tenant union and they took on the property owner and won, the property owner was more willing to eat the costs than do the right thing, eat the costs of the fine rather than do the right thing and rehabilitate and renovate. And so that's because there's, and this is the issue on North Side also, there's a lot of large entities from out of state, from Atlanta and California, New York and so on, buying up large swaths of properties. And their motive isn't to have people housed, their motive is profit. And so we got to take it back to the community hands. Things like Jazz spoke about, Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, making sure it's locally owned. A final thing that we work really hard on in terms of the wealth aspect you were talking about is for folks that want to purchase a house, what are the opportunities for home ownership? And that's why we passed something called the First Generational Home Buyer Program at the Capitol. So folks who historically didn't have the ability to do so, we provide down payment assistance and education and all that stuff so that they can purchase a home, keep it, and then transfer that on for their families and young people. And we think that's the right approach. The number one way to acquire wealth is through home ownership. And too many times, our most marginalized communities, our Black families especially, have not had that opportunity. And we heard that loud and clear, and we delivered that at the Capitol. Now, as a city, what can we do better to better provide education around the resources and things like that for families so that they can take advantage and making sure that they have those opportunities.
Okay, thank you so much. And then Reverend Davis.
Yes, I've been really talking a lot about affordable housing, especially because that's been one of my major portfolios. I worked on the National Housing Trust Fund in Washington for many years, and largely because what I really want, I think the government has to do, government writ large, governments all over the place. One of the things that we've done is that we've privatized housing. And again, there's nothing wrong with having private development projects. We have a housing supply issue across the nation, so we need to build more units. But the government, I think, has forfeited its role in playing that. And I'm not talking about public housing, which we still need to do a lot of work there. But I'm talking about incentivizing nonprofit and public development of housing. We really do need to make sure that public developers and nonprofit developers have some access to capital to build more projects. Right now, we have 4 really good nonprofit developers here: Beacon Housing, Common Bonds, Project for Pride and Living, and Claire Housing. I served on the board of Claire Housing for many years. And the powerful thing about these entities is not only can they target rents for 0 to 30 AMI, they also, in their ownership of the property, they have the ability to actually make owners of their tenants. In a private development, you're not going to see something like that unless we have something like a Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act or a Community Opportunity to Purchase Act. But what we really need to do is to move our housing trust from a gap financing one to a real housing trust fund. And like I said, when I first said this earlier in the campaign, that I wanted to work with the city council and the county to go up to the state legislature for the next bonding debate to ask for $300 million. People say, you're crazy. But we really have to have this conversation about how do we bring the government back into this work so that we begin targeting housing, and so that we don't bid up the price of housing because only the private developers are in the game. But there are other things that we can do here too. The senator talked about the property he visited that was in disrepair. One of the things that we have here too is property owners who are sitting on property and either will not make needed improvements because they don't have the money, or if they make needed improvements, they want to be able to raise the rents. That housing trust fund can be the way that we also incentivize existing property owners to improve their properties. We can backfill the cost so that we don't have to pass that on to renters. There are all these things that we should be looking at. And by the way, this isn't something new. Across the United States, there are other jurisdictions that are looking at this. Atlanta has just discovered that they relied way too heavily on private development. And so now they are offering city-owned property for free or no cost to nonprofit developers to build these projects. Montgomery County, Maryland is the one that first started saying, you know what, we really need to make use of a housing trust fund. And the only thing we'll require is that a nonprofit owns 51% of it so that they can hold that cost. So these are the ways that we can begin to do it. And I just want to speak a little bit about the connection to homelessness here. The one thing that, we don't have a homelessness response team or offer to basically find out what's going on with our unhoused neighbors. We really don't have people really dedicated to figuring out all the possible ways you can respond to people's housing insecurity. I just spent some time with the Jordan Area Community Council here in North Minneapolis, and they took it upon themselves. An organization doesn't have much money, but they took it upon themselves just to really figure out all of the unhoused people in their vicinity. Let's just have a conversation about what they're going through. And, it was certainly about, housing insecurity, but there were other things that we were missing. Some of these people actually, for instance, could have access to shelter, but they are from this neighborhood. So the idea of being bused to a shelter in South Minneapolis from a familiar ground doesn't make sense to them. So how do we learn, give ourselves as a city an opportunity to really figure out what's going on? Some of those people just that if I could get someone to help me get my Social Security card, I can start applying for services to move out of this situation and don't know how to do it. Give ourselves a chance to make sure we're responding to people even at the lowest end.
The final question, gentlemen, and this is kind of in reference to, I think you and I talked about it for a second, Dr. Davis, but you guys might want to as well. This literature came out that presents the three of you, Omar, Dwayne, Jazz Hampton, in a ranked choice voting scenario. Now, I know that your campaigns don't do this, but take a second, 1 minute at the most, to talk about ranked choice voting. And to clarify, does this signify that Dwayne, you're supporting Omar, or Omar, you're supporting Jazz? How does that work so that our voters understand why this message is out and what it means? Dwayne, you first, and guys, 1 minute.
Okay. Well, first of all, I really hate that I didn't bring all of the other literature that is stacked up in my living room from some other independent expenditures. Look, independent expenditures do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
That particular independent expenditure is determined that the iteration of the majority iteration, or the iteration of candidates that give you a majority against the mayor, is us three. It could have been any other configuration. They've chosen what they're going to do. But I just want to point to it like, look, I'm going to do what I need to do to win. With all due respect to my brothers here, I'm running for me. if
that's the question I wanted you to answer.
Yeah. If I thought that if I wanted to support Senator Fonte or Jazz Hampton, I wouldn't have spent all of this money, time in my life and leaving my job. And so with all due respect to them, I think I'm a better candidate. I think I'm the one that should win. But I will respect independent expenditures. I'll respect voters who want
Jazz,
to create this.
1 minute, Jazz.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Finally, Senator Omar.
Agreed with everything Dr. Dwayne said, and I'll add on. Listen, I've always said this is like when you tell your kids to apply to college. You tell them to apply to their favorite and put that one first. If it's Harvard and you're not sure if it's gonna be the winner for you, apply. But don't stop at one. What if you don't? What if that one isn't viable? Then you should have a second and third choice as well. I'm not going to tell anyone who to put for second and third. I'm telling you to put me one. And that's what I want you to do. Other groups, I've had people text me and say, this is the order I'm going to do. That's different than that sheet. I've had people text me and say, this is what I'm thinking about doing that has a different name on that entirely. That's your prerogative. And frankly, anyone who is disempowering people, telling them not to vote for all of the people they feel comfortable running the city, I think they're doing a disservice in this moment. So listen, us three are on here. We didn't ask you to all three of us come on here. We're invited a lot of places that ask for us three to come on here, and I'll be at every single one of them.
Omar, last comment.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with my brothers 110%. And again, to clarify, that independent expenditure is not coming from any of us. Right. Our campaigns cannot have any communication with that group. But what's interesting enough to me is that while that independent expenditure is saying that these are the best three to run, the ones that are supporting the mayor are saying bullet vote the mayor. But if you're supporting other candidates, then rank us number 2, right? So that's a different message rather than empower yourselves to fill your ballot and make sure that one of the candidates that you have. But I'll say publicly, yes, I'm ranking Dwayne and Jazz on my ballot, my brothers. I think that the city needs a new direction, and that's critical and important. But it's deeply, deeply offensive for anyone to say that you're running just to support another person. There are huge sacrifices that people are making for family, both Dwayne and Jazz and myself, for family reasons, work reasons. I have a 2-month-old son at the house right now who is getting bigger every single day, and I have to step out right now to
congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So to say that anyone's helping another person is deeply offensive, because all of us have families and folks that we deeply care about that we're sacrificing time away from.
Listen, thank you all for the clarity and appreciate you being here. Good luck next week. Keep working. Keep working.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Al. Thank you so
We'll
much.
Good to see you. Bye-bye.
All right. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. And as I promised, robust conversation. This certainly was that. Well, let me close out this program with one more voice. And we're talking about some of the groups. All in Minneapolis is one of the groups that is motivating voter turnout. Jacob Hill is a principal there. Jacob, good afternoon. Welcome to The Conversation. How you doing, my friend?
Great to see you, Al. I appreciate you having me on, and I so appreciated your conversations throughout the 2021 election cycle, and have appreciated them this year. So thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you for all the work that you do. And let me start with, all of Minneapolis. What is the organization? What do you do? What's the vision, the mission, the work?
Yeah. Good question. So I haven't been involved with all of Minneapolis for more than a few months. I'm executive director now through this election cycle, but it actually formed in 2021 when there was a great deal of outside money coming into Minneapolis to support the Defund the Police movement, which then turned into ballot question 2 in 2021. And there was about $3.8 million of political money and other money that came in, but $3.8 million on the political independent expenditure side, supporting Yes for Minneapolis, which was the the ballot question to do this. All of Minneapolis formed kind of mid-election cycle that year. A group of people who had been involved in mostly Democratic politics got together and said, all this national money is coming in. We need to listen to our community and raise local money to spend against this ballot question. They also supported electing Mayor Fry and flipping the council seat in Ward 4, for example, with Latricia Vita. So that's what they did. They were successful in 2021. And they're back in 2025, with a similar agenda, trying to make sure that local voices get out, vote. 2021 had the highest municipal turnout in decades, especially on the north side. And, our strategy this time is to increase turnout again, make sure people's voices are being heard, and make sure that this isn't just ceded to the loudest voices in the room, the loudest activists, but that people get their voices out and heard.
So ranked choice voting, how does that impact this election? You saw the question I raised to the other candidates and the literature that suggests they are, collaborating, but they clearly said they are not. They welcome that, but how does that work? Number one, and
yeah, I apologize for any noise. I'm having some window work done here.
No problem. We're okay.
Good. So you showed the independent expenditure piece from Minneapolis for the menu with, them ranking all three candidates. I'll also say there is a piece. Yeah, there is that piece. And they kind of, Dwayne and Jazz Hampton specifically just tried to distance themselves from it, where Fateh was like, no, I'm ranking all three of us, which was funny paradigm to me. The other thing to know is that their campaigns also have, they also have a piece paid for by their campaigns with all three of them. And so clearly they see, the deficit behind Mayor Fry on the first round as insurmountable for any one of them, and are trying to do this as maybe a last-ditch effort to kind of add up. To your point specifically and your question specifically, we see that Dwayne Davis and Jazz Hampton voters who are voting those two folks first, they split out relatively evenly between Jacob Fry and Omar Fateh in terms of how their ranked choice tabulation ends up going. So Senator Fateh is clearly in second. Mayor Fry is clearly in first. Senator Fateh is clearly in second. Dr. Davis is typically in third at around 10% in our polling, and Jazz is a little bit lower than that typically. And they're trying to employ this strategy. It is to the benefit of Senator Fateh and Senator Fateh only because of the way that ranked choice voting is counted. But I think voters are going to operate independently. I was certainly considering ranking Jazz Hampton for a lot of this election cycle. I think he's a much better candidate than Senator Fateh for my politics. I think Dr. Davis is a better candidate than Senator Fateh. And if, I would recommend ranking Jacob Fry first. But we're not telling anybody specifically how to vote. We're telling people these are your options. We strongly encourage you to rank Jacob Fry before you rank Omar Fateh. And that's really all that matters. It's going to be between those two here.
And so what are the options? Let's talk about the options from your point of view and from the official voice and position of all of Minneapolis.
Well, contrary to what people have said, we have not sent any mailers telling, or any paid communications telling people to bullet ballot. I think your options are pretty clear. You can vote Jacob Fry only. You can vote him all three spots. You can vote Jacob Fry first and rank other candidates after that. And it should be each voter's individual choice. I will say, bottom line is this is going to come down to Mayor Fry and Senator Fateh. And if you're a voter, you should go in with a clear head about that you need to rank one of those two on your ballot if you want to make sure that your voice is counted in the final tally, because those are the votes that are going to be counted. And a lot of the votes that just rank Dwayne Davis or just rank Jazz Hampton or just rank any of the other candidates. I like Brenda Short personally. She seems like a lovely person. Like those votes are going to be exhausted ballots and are not going to count in the final tally in the numerator or the denominator. So I would make sure on somewhere on your ballot, if you support Mayor Fry, you have him. If you support Senator Fateh, you have him.
What do you think would be the difference in the direction of the city under either of those candidates? You're supporting Mayor Fry, right?
Yeah.
And so if you would, from your work point of view and personal point of view, why is the vision he represents, the history, important to you to earn your support in your work? And maybe compare and contrast that with his challenger, the most
Viable.
likely challenger,
Yeah.
Senator Omar.
Yeah, that's a great question. And
draw some distinctions for me that
I think
personally
that's-
resonate with you.
I think that's really important. I came into politics on the far left. I worked for Bernie Sanders when I was 18 years old in 2015 and 2016. And I really do and did believe in a lot of the tenets of democratic socialism. So I do come from the left, and a lot of people think that that would put me on Senator Fateh's side. The reason it doesn't is I'm familiar with local politics. I've been around here for the last 10 years. I've been heavily involved in politics for the last 7 years, and I've had a lot of idealistic thoughts coming out of college that were knocked down after knocking 50 doors in North Minneapolis and finding out
Like what? Like what? Like, what do you mean?
The idea that people of color want fewer police.
Okay.
They want better police, in my experience, knocking doors in your neighborhood and others. and thoughts about kind of economic populism, rent control. All these issues are really major. And I think when few others were willing to do it, Jacob Frey has been willing to take a stand. Dr. Davis talked eloquently, and I agree, about how Minnesota politicians have the world at their fingertips, and sometimes they fail to have the courage to take a stand. When the righteous anger over George Floyd's murder spilled over into what I think was a dangerous call to defund the police, Mayor Frey listened to the Black community, listened to the faith community, listened to the Somali community. He spoke up against a proposal that had a veto-proof majority on the city council, that was the focus of the entire national and international media, that had nearly all of the Minneapolis legislators supporting it. He had the guts to do that, and that really changed how I viewed him. And I agreed to be his deputy campaign manager the next year because of that stand, even though it looked like he was in a harrowing position politically. And I think time and time again, Jacob Frey, like me, came from the progressive left, still is progressive. He has the guts to stand up to the crazy ideas on the far left. We in Minneapolis have no shortage of people willing to stand up to the crazy ideas on the far right. And Jacob Frey is one of those people that will stand up to the craziness, to the horror, to the racism, to all of the stuff that Donald Trump is sending down on our communities. He will not lie about it. And he will also have the guts to stand up to the crazy ideas on the far left, defund the police, trying to arrest federal agents, strict rent control, which has decimated building in St. Paul. And I think that's unfortunately a unique combination. It's where a lot of our communities are. It's where a lot of our regular people are. And if we have a couple of minutes to talk about kind of how I started this election cycle way back.
We're down to the last, but go ahead.
Well, so I came through the political world. I'm a staffer at Hennepin County for Sheriff Tawana Witt when I'm not on leave doing political things like I am right now. And I came through there. But like, the crazy thing to me about all these activist council members is that they all come through this pipeline of, political staffer, policy aide, council member. And you don't have a diversity of life experience when you go through that pipeline. You have a lot of political connections. I have a lot of political connections. And like, that helps you get elected. It doesn't help you know anything about the communities that you're serving. And so I sat down with a friend who had just retired from executive search, and we basically called through thousands of people in Minneapolis and who were regular people who have regular jobs. And we said, hey, do you know anybody who might want to run for city council in Minneapolis? And you got candidates with finally a diversity of experiences running for these offices. Pearl Warren comes from, Habitat for Humanity. Shelley Medore in Ward 2, she's a disability advocate. Lydia Millard works at Target. You have people that have a diversity of life experiences and have what this city council lacks, which is some real life lived. And I think we're in a great place to flip the council, to reelect the mayor, and to set Minneapolis on a positive course. And just to circle all the way back to the first question that you asked, I think if Senator Fateh is elected, we really stand the risk of kind of going in an economic doom spiral where there's disinvestment from the city, where the people with means move out because either the service provision goes down or taxes go up or both. And I just don't think it's going to be a good outcome that we want to go down. I think Minneapolis has stayed off of the razor's edge in a lot of ways. And we saw violence increase so much in 2021 and 22. We've started to see it come back down. And I think there's an unbelievable amount of progress that we can make if we just get out of our own way to a certain extent.
Let's end it right there. Jacob Hill, thank you so much. Great to get your insight, your point of view, and keep up the good work.
Thanks so much, Al. I really appreciate the opportunity.
I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. We'll be talking more this week and Monday, even Tuesday, about the election. You got a voice, you got a point of view. Let's connect. We'll see you tomorrow.